In the near future, Europe faces a terrible crisis, and many people lack basic things they need. The governments begin to collapse, and a harsh regime called Not Enough at All takes control. They decide to deal with the resource shortage by harming people. At first, they target the elderly and then pregnant women and kids. However, some countries like Ireland, Iceland, and Norway refuse to go along with this regime and offer help to those fleeing it. Among these people are Nico and his wife Mia, who is pregnant. One night, a smuggler helps them reach a local harbor. They have to sneak among shipping containers to find a way to escape. They change their path when they encounter a dog and avoid the searchlights from helicopters. They can hear the police catching some people who are also trying to escape, but Nico and Mia manage to get past them. They find another smuggler who demands more money, even though they've already paid a lot. With no other option, they give the smuggler their wedding rings. Afterward, they enter the back of a truck filled with other women who are also escaping with their kids, and there's even a dog with them. Mia takes off the covering from her belly and becomes anxious because she hasn't felt her baby moving recently. Nico shows her where to touch, to find the spot where the baby's foot usually kicks. He also surprises her with a Snickers bar, a little treat they've been saving for a celebration once they reach Ireland. Later, one of the refugees uses a drill to make a hole in the truck, allowing some light inside. Mia watches the other children and feels a sense of guilt because she and Nico had to leave their first child behind. Nico reminds her that the soldiers took their first child, which likely means she didn't survive. After just a few hours of traveling, the truck makes an unexpected stop to pick up more refugees. People quickly pile in, making the truck too crowded. The smuggler announces they will split the group into two, leaving women and children in this truck, while the men will travel in another vehicle. Nico tries to explain that he and his wife were already in this truck, but he's ignored and taken away. The doors are closed, and Mia has to watch through a hole as her husband disappears. She uses her phone to desperately try to contact him. Nico reassures Mia, telling her not to worry because the trucks are heading in the same direction, so they'll reunite later. He advises her to conserve battery on her phone and keep an eye on their belongings. As the truck continues its journey, Mia peers through the hole and becomes disturbed by the violence she witnesses everywhere. Soldiers brutally suppress riots, and women are being taken away in cages, treated like livestock. A while later, the truck comes to a halt at a checkpoint, causing all the women to quickly hide at the back. The driver presents papers to indicate he's transporting cargo, but the soldiers decide to inspect the truck anyway. Initially, they only see a few boxes because the refugees are concealed behind a false wall. However, the leader becomes suspicious and instructs one of his men to enter the truck, urging him to go as far as possible and shoot at the side wall. Following the gunshot, the leader detects the difference in distance and realizes there's a hidden compartment. He and his soldiers enter the truck, instructing the women to come out. Fearing the worst, Mia climbs on top of the crates just before one of the women opens the false wall. The leader of the soldiers takes immediate and brutal action, killing the woman who opened the false wall. The other soldiers open fire, unleashing a hail of bullets on the entire group. Mia finds herself splattered with their blood, and by the end, only the dog and a little child are left standing. The dog manages to escape, but the soldiers ensure the child does not survive. Once the soldiers leave, Mia is left in tears. She sends a message to her husband, desperately telling him to hide. A few hours later, the truck arrives at another harbor, and the container is prepared to be loaded onto a ship. Mia attempts to call Nico, but he doesn't answer, so she leaves another message, explaining that the ship is taking her away. She checks the contents of her bag and turns on a light before drifting off to sleep. Sometime later, Mia is jolted awake as the container starts to shake violently. Through the bullet holes, she can see sailors on the ship running in a panic due to a fierce storm wreaking havoc. Mia screams for help as the violent shaking causes her to roll and get injured. Suddenly, a heavy landing knocks her unconscious. When she regains consciousness, Mia realizes that water is seeping into the container through the bullet holes. Mia gazes outside and is met with a devastating sight. The ship has sunk, and all the containers, including hers, are now adrift in the middle of the sea. panic sets in, and she attempts to call Nico, but her phone has been damaged and won't work. She tries another phone she had in her bag, but struggles with the password to unlock it. As she checks on the well-being of her baby, Mia notices that water is steadily seeping into the container. She begins to search through the crates for something she can use to help. Unfortunately, the crates are filled with items like plastic containers, televisions, alcohol, and earbuds. She also finds a bunch of hoodies and puts one on. In her search, Mia collects items that fell from her bag, including some tape and a Swiss Army knife. She uses the tape to slow down the water seeping in. In her moment of distress, Mia stumbles upon her diary and takes solace in a picture of her family. Suddenly, she hears screams and peers through a hole to see a container slowly sinking with people inside. Desperate, Mia starts screaming Nico's name and inserts her SIM card into the working phone. But Nico doesn't answer, and the container sinks, leaving Mia in a state of emotional breakdown. In the following hours, Mia continues to attempt to use the phone without success. As night falls, she becomes overwhelmed with despair and even contemplates ending her life. But then she feels the baby move. The sensation prompts Mia to find renewed determination to live for the sake of her unborn child. She manages to fall asleep while hearing the soothing songs of whales outside. Soon after, Mia notices a hanging crate shaking and narrowly avoids it as it falls. This unintentional movement causes water to rush into the container rapidly, and Mia fears she's about to drown. However, she suddenly awakens from what turns out to be a nightmare. She realizes that the tape she used to seal the holes has come off, and the water is getting worse. In a moment of resourcefulness, Mia takes rubber from the lids of the plastic containers and uses it to cover the lower holes. She also locates a hose in one of the crates and uses it to drain water through another hole. Mia arranges 2 crates against the wall to create a place to lie down and marks the water levels with more tape. She begins counting the days until the water reaches a critical level. Despite several unsuccessful attempts with the phone, Mia repurposes wires from the earbuds to hang up the photographs from her diary, hoping they'll dry. She meticulously checks her supplies, ensuring that she rationed her water bottles and food properly. She also discovers that the dropped drill and lighter from others are still functional. Suddenly, her phone rings with an unknown number, and Mia answers to find it's Nico on the line. He couldn't answer earlier because his battery had died. Nico reveals that he's still alive, as the other driver had deceived them by abandoning the group outside the city. Mia shares her harrowing experience, and Nico promises that he'll find a way to rescue her. He insists she must continue conserving her phone's battery and focus on staying alive for the sake of their child. Unexpectedly, Mia feels a contraction and pleads with the baby to wait a little longer. She takes a bite of her sandwich, rearranges the crates, but soon boredom sets in. She notices a storm approaching and feels another contraction, hoping it's a false alarm. Moments later, it becomes clear that it's not a false alarm. The storm violently shakes the container, and Mia realizes that the baby is indeed on its way. Amidst the increasing pain and water flooding into the container, Mia lets out agonizing screams. Her phone rings, but it slips from her hand as she attempts to answer it. With no other options, Mia removes her dress and hangs onto the ropes of the crates. Standing up, she gives birth to her baby in the water, discovering that the umbilical cord is wrapped around the baby's neck. Swiftly, Mia untangles the cord and pats the baby's back until she cries, relieved that her child is breathing. She climbs onto a crate and holds the newborn, waiting for the storm to subside. The next morning, Mia senses the placenta coming out of her body and stores it in a plastic container. She tidies up the area as much as possible and places the baby in a small box with a hoodie while she checks her belongings. She eats a bit of canned food, but she finds that her phone has sustained water damage and is no longer functional. Adding to her distress, the baby continues to cry, and Mia tries unsuccessfully to breastfeed her. When Mia hears the sound of the container's metal squeaking, she gets an idea. She employs the drill to create holes in the ceiling, hoping to cut out a square that will enable her to escape. However, the noise only intensifies the baby's cries. As frustration mounts, Mia attempts to soothe her crying baby, but even singing fails to calm her. Overwhelmed, Mia loses her temper and shouts at the infant. Realizing her mistake, she quickly apologizes. Moments later, Mia feels a sensation in her chest, and she tries feeding the baby again. This time, milk flows, and the child finally starts to feed. Exhaustion takes over, and Mia ends up consuming all the food she has. She resumes drilling the ceiling in an effort to escape, but unfortunately, the drill runs out of battery before she can complete the task. Next, Mia inserts the SIM card back into her original phone, but she still can't make it work. Frustration boils over, and she begins throwing her belongings around in anger. When she discovers the knife, she attempts to use it on the holes in the ceiling to finish the job, but it begins hurting her hands. As time passes, Mia has little else to do but care for the baby, occasionally dampening the child's skin to provide relief from the heat. Sleeping is challenging because her hunger pains are relentless. Ultimately, desperation takes hold, and Mia decides to consume her own placenta. As Mia listens to the wails outside, the following morning, Mia makes another attempt with the knife on the holes in the ceiling, only for the knife to break. Her phone remains non-functional, and she's left with no choice but to consume the last of her clean water. Feeling dizzy due to the intense heat, Mia resorts to wetting her head with seawater and licking drops from the ceiling. Unfortunately, this causes her to become sick after a few minutes. The dizziness worsens, and Mia suddenly has a haunting dream where her first daughter appears, blaming her for her death at the hands of the soldiers. Nico also appears in the dream, reminding Mia that it wasn't her fault. When Mia awakens from the dream, she's feeling somewhat better because it has started raining, and water is trickling through the holes. Mia ensures to drink some water and collect as much as she can in the plastic containers. She also grabs a can, and when the lid breaks, it sparks an idea. Mia threads the rope from the crates through the holes in the ceiling and starts pulling down with determination. Eventually, she succeeds in creating a hole that allows sunlight to filter inside. Afterward, Mia climbs onto the container's roof and confirms that there's no land in sight. She and the baby sleep up there to get fresh air. When it's time to change the baby, Mia tosses the soiled hoodie into the water, which attracts the attention of a school of fish. Mia rushes to grab some rope and a piece of metal, attempting to fish, but despite her efforts, she can't catch a single fish. Disheartened, Mia suddenly notices a passing plane. She hurries back into the container, breaking a television and retrieving a piece of its screen. However, in her haste, she accidentally injures her leg. Ignoring the pain for the moment, she uses the screen piece to reflect the sunlight, attempting to signal the plane. Unfortunately, the plane doesn't spot her and flies away. Disappointed, Mia returns inside the container and resorts to using wires and small metal pieces to stitch her wound, which is a painful process. To make it more bearable, she tries to numb the pain with alcohol. With a newfound resourcefulness, Mia utilizes the hundreds of earbuds to craft a net using their wires. Once the net is complete, she throws it into the sea with a dirty cloth and manages to trap some fish, which she consumes raw for sustenance. Over the following days, Mia dedicates herself to survival. She continues removing water from the container using the hose, successfully catches more fish with the net, and stores them in the plastic containers. Mia also utilizes paper sheets from her diary to write numerous SOS notes, placing them inside containers and tossing them into the sea, hoping that someone will come to her rescue. One afternoon, she shares all the family pictures with the baby and decides to name her Noah, after Nico's grandmother, as Nico had wished. Mia also shows Noah a picture of her sister, recounting the painful story of how the soldiers took her and expressing her lingering guilt. Later in the evening, Mia notices that Noah is getting cold, so she uses some alcohol and a lighter to start a fire for warmth. In the middle of the night, she hears a noise against the container wall and discovers that it's just a plastic container. At that moment, Mia's phone begins ringing, and she's overjoyed to hear Nico's voice. However, the news he delivers is heartbreaking. Nico attempted to steal a boat but was spotted by soldiers and shot. He's currently in hiding, slowly bleeding out, and doesn't have much time left. In this heart-wrenching call, Nico says his goodbyes and implores Mia to promise that she'll survive. Mia places the phone next to Noah so Nico can hear her baby's adorable noises. As Mia and Nico exchange their final I love yous, her phone battery dies, and the wind extinguishes the fire as she weeps. It's revealed that Mia has been saving a Snickers bar for the end of her journey, as promised. On day 26, Mia is on the verge of breaking down. The container walls are covered in drawings and rants on paper sheets, and the water level is nearing its limit, forcing Mia and the baby to live on top of the crates. Mia uses the wood from the crates, the plastic containers, and the rope to assemble a makeshift raft. Suddenly, a seagull lands on the container to snatch some of her fish. This unexpected visitor fills Mia with hope, as it suggests they may be nearing land. Later in the evening, Mia starts a new fire and prepares her raft's sail. Inside the container, she hears a noise and realizes it's about to sink. Mia dives in to gather her precious pictures and spots the Snickers bar in a plastic container. Despite the risk, she goes deeper inside to retrieve it. While the water pushes the raft away with Noah on it, Mia's foot becomes entangled with rope. She struggles against it, fighting not to drown. Using a piece of metal, she cuts the rope and swims out of the container just before it sinks. However, upon reaching the surface, Mia is horrified to find Noah missing. Moments later, a wave expels some water, hitting Noah and causing her to cry. Mia follows the sound, ultimately reuniting with her daughter. The following morning, as they float on the raft, Mia opens a plastic container and tosses some fish into the sea, hoping to attract birds. Soon, a flock of seagulls circles above them, catching the attention of a nearby boat. The crew on the boat immediately changes course and rescues the small raft. Inside, they find Noah, safe and sound. There's also a rope trailing from the raft into the sea, prompting the sailors to pull it up. Mia's lifeless body emerges from the water. The sailors waste no time and immediately begin performing CPR on Mia, refusing to give up, especially for the sake of the baby. After numerous chest compressions, Mia finally responds, and the sailors hand the baby to her before using the radio to call for assistance. It takes Mia a moment to realize that she's safe. When she gazes at the horizon, she realizes they are approaching Ireland, which means she will have the chance to start the new life she had hoped for. And here movie ends. Thanks for watching, guys.